WoW Killer is a production of amove.tv. Check out amove TV for many more podcasts, multiple about Blizzard games. And for more of Taliesin's WoW coverage, check out Taliesin and Evitel on YouTube and twitch.tv. Greetings and welcome everyone to Uther Killer, the podcast all about why Uther was wrong from the perspective of Arthas. I hope you're all doing fine today.
Oh, hi! I didn't see you there. I was just here in my new place. The last thing I expected was to turn around to my computer screen and see WoW Killer going on. I was just enjoying my new office.
Are we gonna... When are we gonna start doing this show from leather armchairs in smoking jackets?
As soon as my leather armchair arrives, because I'm not even being funny, I've literally got a fireplace right next to me right here.
Oh,
this is a London house, man. We got 4 fireplaces in this house. Get out.
Oh, that's great.
We're ready for Taliesin chats by the fire.
I only have one, which is one too many considering I live in Florida. We've used it once. We've been here 4 years.
Oh, you can't use them. They're just like original features, but they've been blocked up, thank goodness, because you get the draft down them and stuff like that. Otherwise, it'd be terrible. But like, no, the Victorian fireplaces are still here, and they're lovely. They're very nice, very nice.
That's really cool.
We know they're blocked up because we tried to run an Ethernet cable through them because we've got two chimney flumes, right? But then obviously each flume has like an upstairs and a downstairs kind of fireplace.
That sounds like nothing a drill can't solve.
Oh, maybe, but I don't want to really, like as soon as Annie is aware enough, my child, my small boy, we'll send him up there to do the drilling. But, he wouldn't understand it at the moment. And anyway, by the time he does understand it, by the time he has consciousness, he'll probably be too big for the fire, for the chimney, alas, because he is a chonker. He is a flabby boy. He is chunky and wibbly and wobbly, and I love him very much.
Oh.
But I wouldn't want him to get stuck up the chimney. Is what I'm saying, because who does that benefit? No one. Then we've got no chimney or sun, and the Ethernet cable's not through anyway. So what's the point?
That sounds almost as inconvenient as getting your soul stuck in a sword.
Thank you for bringing that background. I appreciate that.
How do you do that?
Yes.
How do you?
That
how
was
do you
professional.
Do that?
So yesterday we had the Gamescom announcement with the release date for World of Warcraft Shadowlands, which is the 27th of October, which is like literally the date I predicted. So
yeah, you're very right, and I don't even remember what I predicted, but I know I was talking November, I think, to be the kindest to myself. I may have mentioned December. So congratulations, Taliesin. I yield.
Sorry, don't mention it. I don't even know why you're talking about it. Why would you bring it up? But like, I was right. So there's that, and not only that, we were treated to the very first installment of the new animated series, a la Warbringers, a la the one that Legion did.
So I'll keep my opinion to myself for a second and ask you first. Would you like it? Did you not like it? What was your reaction?
Oh, it's rubbish.
That was rubbish. Oh, okay.
I hate it. No, obviously it was amazing. Just like all of the ones that came before it. For a start, I'm a huge fan of that animated style. It's kind of animated, but not animated.
Yes.
Yeah. You could almost be forgiven for thinking it's just still images, kind of one after the other. But if you actually pay attention, there's actually loads of really good animation going on in there to kind of give that effect. It's really cool. And I think the artwork in this one, the actual just still drawings, is probably the best one they've ever done. Out of all of them.
I agree. I honestly think these are all beautiful. Every single one of them, they've ever done. I'm with you. I really like the style. I really like the painterly style. A lot of folks know I'm a big like nerd of the art books for World of Warcraft, and I love concept art, and it just embraces that kind of quick painterly style and doesn't try to over render or whatever, and it just kind of embraces it, and I really dig it. I've really liked it ever since they started doing these things. So yeah, I'm super freaking into the style. I think I saw Tara Gregory posted the credits, and I think there are 4 separate artists credited as illustrators on this. and which is impressive. It's a really cohesive style. So they got 4 different people working on it. Everyone really kind of understands what the vision of this is. And I don't know if that's normal or not. I just assumed because the style was so like on point that it was like one artist doing all of this.
Yeah, the vision is so consistent, isn't it?
Yeah.
And has been like all throughout Warbringers and the Legion ones and the WoD ones as well, the Warlords ones, which introduced you to those. I think there were some for Mists as well, but they were much smaller scale. And you know, we're getting used to this now. And what finer director to bring all that talent together in this particular instance than Terran Gregory? Because we know, obviously, Terran Gregory is one of those few names, I think you could say, one of those developer names that kind of the layperson knows. Like your average WoW kind of player might not know the names of lots of devs who work on World of Warcraft, but I think most people have heard of Terran Gregory because he kind of ascends that, and he's kind of top of his game and consistently, is head of a team that produces these incredible cinematics. And this was Terran Gregory's first non-CGI animation that he's ever worked on, that he's ever directed.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, so he kind of took charge of that one, and how fitting. And I suspect he probably angled it so that this was the one he worked on, was because this was, of course, about Bastion. There are going to be 4 episodes, and there's going to be one for each Covenant in Shadowlands. So Bastion, Maldraxxus, Ardenweald, and Revendreth. I wouldn't be surprised if they appear in that order, because that's the order that you go to them in the game, and it would make sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if the next one is Draka in Maldraxxus. Yes, that one. But this particular one was focused mostly around the character of Uther, which is incredibly fitting for Terran Gregory, because, of course, if you find his in-game NPC in-game, him and his wife, Diva, are in Stormwind, and they are kneeling in front of the Uther statue, just outside Stormwind Cathedral. So, like, Terran Gregory, famous big fan of Uther, and so, like, really fitting that he would kind of take charge of this one. Which is, and I think I'm not alone in thinking that if you take Daughter of the Sea out of the equation, because it's kind of like utterly unique, Daughter of the Sea. Like, it's unfair to compare Daughter of the Sea to anything. If you take that one out of the equation, I think this one might be the best one they've done just generally of this style of cinematic. I
would like to say that even if I take my own personal biases out of the equation, that this is like the greatest animatic in the history of these Warcraft animatics. It's just, it's amazing. I was screaming. I was absolutely screeching.
Well, even better than Daughter of the Sea.
I
think if they started singing at some point, maybe I could, maybe then we could be talking.
Daughter of the Sea.
Your wound, Uther, what happened here?
I think it'd be a single piano note, and then the Black Parade would start playing. I think that's what would happen. But I think that's a little more. When I was an old pally.
When he was my student, I taught him the ways of the light.
Yes. I couldn't.
Oh, wait, your wound. You're not okay.
Listen, I get that we always lean, fandom. We lean that way, okay? I like to think that we do a pretty good job of like, oh yeah, here's a critique. Here's keeping it real. The people that make World of Warcraft are indeed human and have their faults. This is not going to be one of those episodes for me, like at all, because I was like, it started and you see Uther in a freaking farm field and the undead horde and the silhouette of Arthas standing before him, and I'm just like, oh damn, oh this is gonna get me, isn't it? And I was already like peak redlining fandom, and then it goes on. We get introduced to Bastion and all that, and then we get to literally the end of the raid that is still to this day the high point for me in World of Warcraft, because it's the closest I've ever felt to beating the game. They literally just bring the ending of the raid into the cinematic, and I was dead. I'm still dead, Taliesin. I am actually doing this podcast from the Shadowlands as we speak.
That's why it's more grey than usual. A joke that no one listening to the podcast will get.
No, not at all.
because Garrett's office is looking lovely right now.
No, it's looking so emo. I need more lighting, is what it really comes down to. But whatever the case is, yeah, I this is everything I hoped it was going to be, and even one further. So
So I think there were many elements. I think there were many layers to what was so satisfying about this cinematic. Like, one was the artwork, which I feel was amazing, and I think that extended into the facial expressions of particularly Davos.
I was going to say Uther. I've been saying Devos. I know it's mentioned like once in the cinematic, but it hasn't like permanently resided in my brain yet. But yeah, for me, it was like Uther. Like, it was cool seeing Uther out of armor for a large portion of this, and his kind of afterlife attire and a little more stripped down. And I don't like, Uther's always looked kind of boxy, and I guess Thrall stole all the boxiness in BFA and didn't leave any for Uther, because now Uther's a little more gaunt, and I don't. There's just something about like the way that they got all this gestural emotion in the way they like painted his beard, because his beard like covers his whole damn mouth. And
it's awesome.
They did a really good job with it. So, but you're right. Yeah, I mean, Devos too, but both. I mean, these are still images. Yes, they're animated, but it's not like we're getting any nuance between the motion of the facial expressions, and it doesn't matter. You're just looking at really solid paintings of faces that's getting across these emotions.
And I'm in the middle of making my cinematic analysis at the moment, and it's actually quite hard because there is loads to talk about. But some of the things that you would talk about, i.e. character motivations and stuff like that, it kind of feels irrelevant to talk about them, because the cinematic and the artwork does such a good job of just flat out showing you that anyway. And like just the way the faces are presented, and the merest kind of turning up of a mouth or like eye shape, and it's really satisfying to see. And that is kind of underlined by the fact, I mean, the whole thing has got a really good mix of kind of like nostalgia and fan service about it, because of course it is all about Uther and by extension Arthas, and going right back to it opens up outside Arendelle as the Lich King. Oh no, he's not the Lich King then. As Arthas kills Uther, so we're in Warcraft 3 right there. And then it goes all the way through Uther's kind of like process in Bastion, and like you say, finishes at with Arthas dying and going into the Shadowlands, and being kind of snatched by Devos and Uther. And in between that, you've got all the incredibly relevant stuff of Bastion as well, and kind of the like reveals we get to the story of the expansion, which is coming up. So you've got this really good mix of nostalgia and kind of present day story, which is awesome.
Yeah, and the nostalgia, that's what I think kind of elevates it and just makes it like a good piece of fiction that like accomplishes what it needs to accomplish, because it tees up Bastion in a way. And again, this is very personal for me, because I've been saying all along that I think Bastion's a little boring. Of all the zones in Shadowlands, it's the one that kind of struck me as it's just a little, it's a little bronze like all the time, and that just kind of felt like that was it. But now I am like properly excited to go back through the Bastion leveling experience, having seen this cinematic. And also it uses the nostalgia really sparingly, because the meat of this is it all takes place in Bastion. It focuses on like Uther's self-imposed purgatory and Devos, versus the freaking hive mind of zealotous angel folk. So like, and it just does a good job. Like I didn't really like, I understood what was going on with like the Bastion story, and like we're getting ahead of ourselves. I'm going to try not to talk too much about what actually happens in the expansion itself and focus on this. But speaking generally, like I understood where it was going and what was going on, and the story they were trying to tell. But this just teed it up so much better. It just really framed it, and like I was like, oh, okay, this absolutely drives home like the tone of what's going on in Bastion in a way that just screwing around with it in the alpha and the beta didn't do for me.
Yeah, and it's like, just to kind of give listeners, in case you haven't seen it, and probably just useful for the conversation as well. Like a brief outline of the actual story that happens in the cinematic is that Uther is killed by Arthas. Spoiler, sorry. In Warcraft.
Oh my
3.
God! What?
I know. And he goes to Bastion, and he's carried in Bastion by I guess Devos, but it could be any Kyrian, and ferried to Bastion because he's told that you have lived a selfless life, and that's why you've ended up in Bastion, because eventually you're going to unburden yourself of all your cares and become a Kyrian like us and have the incredibly important job of ferrying the dead to their various places in the Shadowlands. And he's all like, no, I serve the light, and my job is not done because there's a baddie out there, and he needs justice and stuff like that. And Devos is like, oh, yeah, okay, that a lot of souls are like this, that's fine. And as time passes, and Uther just doesn't kind of, make any progress at all, she's kind of talking to another Kyrian, and she's like, I can't help thinking maybe he was sent here by mistake. Maybe he's not supposed to be here. Maybe he's not really kind of Bastion material. She keeps trying to talk to him about it, and eventually he kind of reveals his wound from Shadowmourn that struck him down, that killed him right through his heart, and it's still glowing blue, and with kind of soul-y stuff and like Frostmourne-y stuff. And she's all like, "Oh my God, your soul is damaged. This is terrible." And she's never seen anything like it. This is the thing, because she gets everyone in, as she says at the very beginning, there is no evil here. There's only like good people who are the best of the best.
Yeah, I totally get it. There is no war in Ba Sing Se. Like, sorry, you haven't watched Avatar yet. I think we established that on a previous episode.
And that changes her. Then she's like, "Oh, did I say Frostmourne? I said Shadowmourne."
You said Shadowmourne. We know what you mean.
Yeah. And she's all like, "Oh no, this is terrible. What happened?" She's like really angry, and you can tell she feels really bad about the fact that she was doubting Uther, And then she kind of touches the wound, and they get a flashback to the moment when it happened, and when he was killed, and his soul as it leaves his body. And we saw this happening with Sylvanas as well, as like the kind of the anima we now know kind of flows out of the eyes and the mouth. And it's quite horrific, really. But his soul kind of splits in two as it leaves his body. Like there's a blue bit which goes into Frostmourne, as you'd expect, but then there's like a light bit that kind of zooms off, and we assume that's the bit that goes to the Shadowlands. We assume that's the bit that goes to Kyrian.
Yeah, because there's still some questions, right? Because like if you play through Wrath of the Lich King, like Uther's soul appears to you from Frostmourne at a certain point in that expansion. You're just like, well, wait, how does that happen if he's in Bastion? And
it's definitely in Frostmourne. That's the thing. I think that's why it makes a big point of kind of snapping it in half. This idea that some of his soul is in Frostmourne and some of it is in Bastion, which explains why why Devos thinks he's not Bastion material, because he's not all there. He's only half a soul, sort of thing. So the Uther that we see in Bastion appears to be the part of his soul which is kind of consumed with a lust for revenge or justice, as he puts it. It's clearly vengeance and like obsession with kind of bringing Arthas to heel and stuff like that. Whereas the soul the part of the soul that's in Frostmourne, as we see in Wrath of the Lich King, is the compassionate sort, the sort that is looking out for Jaina and trying to tell her how to be okay and how to kill Arthas, and stuff like that. So yeah, like it explains why Devos thought that maybe there'd been a mistake, because usually the souls that they get in Bastion, they have like maybe a lust for vengeance as well, but they also have that compassionate side that eventually wins over and they become kind of Kyrian. But Uther's soul in Bastion doesn't have that, because that bit is still in Frostmourne, which is really, really interesting.
That's what I find curious, though, is like there's a very clear representation of like the light and then like a darker muted tone going into Frostmourne. So why did the vengeful side go to Bastion?
Who knows? Or maybe it was the part in Frostmourne that went to Bastion. I think we're supposed to think it's the other way around. I'm not sure though. But yeah, it's certainly open for debate. But either way, only half of the soul ends up in Bastion, or a part of the soul, which has this like incredible effect on Davos, and she goes to the council and to the leader, and she's like, look, there is a mortal going around on a mortal world with a weapon from the Maw, because she recognizes the runes on Frostmourne.
It's real. It's real. Voldemort has returned energy.
Yeah, totally. And she's like, look, there's some mortal out there who is killing people with a sword from the Maw. This is not okay. And everyone in Bastion is like, that's impossible. No one can escape the Maw, blah, blah, blah. And obviously Davos is like, oh, and she gets told to forget about it. And, no one believes her. And she's all like, okay, dude, we has taken matters into our own hands. So she skips the process for Uther, and he doesn't have to unburden himself. And she makes him a Kyrian, even though he's clearly not ready and clearly like consumed with hate and vengeance. And she's like, look, the second Arthas falls, we're going to nab him and we're going to put him in the Maw. Because presumably she doesn't think he would go to the Maw anyway. So they're just going to make sure that he goes to the Maw.
Which is another interesting thought that seems a little strange, because like, well, why wouldn't Arthas go to the Maw?
Yeah, well, exactly. Which actually, again, like so much in this cinematic, has really interesting connotations for the way the Shadowlands works in general. Because if Arthas doesn't get sent to the Maw, no one does, right? So what that suggests is that no one ever gets sent to the Maw automatically, and that Revendreth, as it is described in its description, but this adds lots of weight to that. Revendreth is your last hope. So you get sent to Revendreth if your next step is going to be the Maw, and like Revendreth is your last chance to find like any hope for salvation, and like work on your sin stone and stuff like that. And it kind of suggests that no one ever goes to the Maw without going to Revendreth first, to be given like one last shot at redemption. And Davos and Uther decide not to give Arthas that shot.
Because the whole thing is like they're judged by the Arbiter first, right? They're essentially sorted into which realm they belong in. And so
sorting hat, yeah.
Yeah, the sorting angel, my favorite character in Harry Potter.
So and that would explain the jailer's plan a lot more, if because it must be quite annoying. Like some of the baddest people in WoW, he's all like, "Oh, come to the Maw, it's going to be great. We're going to have a good old time." But then they go to Revendreth, and some of them find like salvation and eventually like work their way into better parts of the Shadowlands, and instead of going to the Maw, and that must be quite frustrating for him.
That's interesting. So what it like? Do you think Arthas had a chance to redeem himself in proper death? I guess second death.
I don't see why not. Like we see Kel'Thas. Spoilers. We see Kel'Thas do it. If a one tiny clip from the Revendreth cinematic, which is coming up, is to be believed, maybe we're going to see Garrosh do it as well, or certainly be given the chance. It looks like he might be in Revendreth, and yeah, it certainly suggests to me that people, we've always known that Revendreth is like the last chance saloon. And if you don't manage to kind of find any salvation there, then you go to the Maw. But it certainly suggests that no one would go to the Maw without going to Revendreth.
I'm hoping that if it is Garrosh in those chains, like in that snippet, like they have blink and you miss it half second, and like the sizzle reel for all of these, because that's going to be the Revendreth, which is going to be the Kel'Thas short, we're assuming. I hope it's like a throwaway moment. Like they're giving Kel'Thas the tour. Sure. They're giving him the tour, and it's just like half a second of Garrosh being absolutely dumped on and then just kicked into the Maw. They're just like, well, sorry, you're just trash. You are a trash orc. And he's just walking by. He's like, wait, who is that getting kicked into hell? And they're like, don't worry, he's a garbage orc.
So, but then the question remains, like, because they've broken the system, because they've snatched Arthas up, and you get this beautiful scene where you see Arthas die at Icecrown, and he says the line that he says in the Wrath cinematic of "I see only darkness," and you know that in his mind's eye he's looking at the ghost of his father there as well, which is really beautiful, even though in the cartoon it's not. And you see Davos snatching him up, and then Uther has him by the neck and like throws him into the Maw, and like they're in kind of like heavenly blue, and then the Maw is all black and red and churning underneath them. So it's like the inverse of the burning of Teldrassil, which was kind of blue at the bottom and then like red at the top. So, and again, Sylvanas was someone that was working for the jailer at that point. And so like that imagery is very, very kind of meaningful, because there's an argument to be made that at this moment, Uther and Devos, although not explicitly working for the jailer, could well be doing the jailer's will without realizing it. Like getting Arthas to the Maw without giving him a chance of salvation.
It would certainly seem to be in step with like the jailer's desires, because like the issue in Shadowlands is the souls are just going straight to the Maw. It's like, well, why is this happening? This is not supposed to happen. And so it certainly would seem like, and that's like, I think it's interesting gray area. It's like, well, Arthas kind of belongs there, doesn't he? How bad is it? It's like, well, clearly there's like concern for Uther at this point, because it's like, well, like the Uther we know would have still wanted proper judgment, which is completely, and undercut in this entire situation.
If that's true, and that everyone would go to Revendreth before going to the Maw, no one would just get sent straight there. Obviously, since some point in Legion, certainly beginning of BFA, everyone's been going to the Maw regardless, because that's like, that's the story, and they've managed to break the machine and get everyone there. But if it is true that no one would ever go straight to the Maw, and they always have a chance at redemption, they always have, like, everyone has a chance to redeem themselves and to find kind of, like that within themselves to find forgiveness. That's actually like an incredibly merciful approach. That's actually something that Shadowlands is doing really, really well, and that's justice, right? Is everyone, no matter how bad, having a chance to atone and having a chance to find salvation and having a chance to redeem themselves. Like, and if that's how the Shadowlands works, I don't know, man, that's quite a bit better than most religions, to be perfectly honest with you.
It is extremely optimistic and very Star Warsy. In the Star Wars,
yeah,
like no one has past redemption
as well, which I really like, and like Uther absolutely would be in favor of that for anyone else you suspect, were his soul all intact, and were he not at this stage getting egged on by Devos to commit this act, because he actually, if half of his soul was in Frostmourne. Well, Frostmourne is broken. The souls are released by the time that Arthas is dead, obviously. So there's an argument that his soul is starting to kind of reform at that moment. And that's when he hesitates. And he's like, oh, I don't know. He was my student. I don't know if I should do this. And Devos is at his shoulder, like, come on, you gotta show him, he needs to pay for his sins. And Uther's like, yeah, okay. And releases him into the Maw. And there's a really interesting parallel, I think, between Devos and Arthas as well in this story. Like, Devos wants to do something. She wants to do the right thing. She's found out this information that no one else knows. She goes to her superiors for help, and they refuse to help. So she takes matters into her own hands and performs an action which no one else would agree with, but which she thinks is the right thing. And inadvertently causes disaster and inadvertently damns herself, because then she becomes they form the Forsworn because of that, so it's very much echoes the story of Arthas himself, really, that kind of, I'm gonna have to do this bad thing for a greater good sort of thing, but in doing bad thing after bad thing for the greater good, she does damn herself beyond kind of any hope and has to be brought down, which, spoiler, maybe we will.
Maybe. And without getting to that, it's just like as it is presented in this short, I think Devos has a really good point. I think all the other Bastion folk are kind of dicks. I see the line you're drawing makes a lot of sense between Arthas and Devos. I get that, but Arthas went to his superiors and said, "Hey, will you help me murder a ton of innocent villagers in their sleep?" And Devos was just like, there's a dude with Maw power on a mortal world. We should probably do something about this.
Okay, but see it from Arthas' point of view. Arthas went to his superiors and said, something really terrible is about to happen. This is the only way we can stop it. And his superiors said, no, the way we're going to stop it is to essentially not do anything. And Arthas is like, no, because that's going to make it much, much worse. We have to do this bad thing to stop it being much worse. There's even an argument that in the long run, he was right. But that doesn't make his actions any more justifiable, and it doesn't make them any less horrific. And it's the same with Devos. It's that thing of like, she might have a point. She was right about Frostmourne. She was right about the Maw, but that doesn't mean that she did the right thing in ascending Uther when he clearly A, wasn't ready, and B, wasn't even all of Uther. So she's just ascended a Kyrian who is essentially just made up of like, you know, a desire for vengeance, which is like the absolute wrong thing to do, and probably inadvertently supplied the jailer with a really badass general who might not have found his way there otherwise. And irrespective of where her intentions start, and again, this is a spoiler for the Bastion storyline, but it only lasts 5 seconds. By the time we meet her in Bastion, she is explicitly working for the jailer. So whatever her initial intentions were, they led her down a path where she literally joined forces with the jailer, who she was claiming in much the same way that Arthas does. Arthas is all like, we have to stop this plague, we have to stop the spread of undead, and it sets him down a path which eventually sees him as the leader of all the undead. So like literally becoming the thing that they are initially against. And that exact same thing happens to Devos. She's like, well, the Maw and the jailer is out there, we have to stop it. And by the time we meet her later on, she's literally working for the jailer.
Oh, yeah. So again, and I'm not refuting any of that. I guess my point is like the Kyrians, like there's nothing annoys me more in fiction, and I understand the trope and the trappings of it, than like, no, that couldn't possibly be happening. That conflicts with my worldview. So say we all. Like I'm just like, no, it's just as much the Kyrian's fault as it is Devos's, because
yeah, but then of course you also don't know because like the Eternal Ones who are in charge of the Covenants. So the Night Queen, the Jailer, Sire Denathrius, the Primus in Maldraxxus, and the winged one who's in charge of Bastion, whose name is used multiple times throughout the cinematic, but whose name I forget. I'm sure chat will tell me. You know, they are the Archon. Thank you. Who's to say that they don't already know? You know, like I know she's like the Archon never says to Devos, "I don't believe you." The Archon says, "We have to just stick to the plan." So, and in fairness, by going against the plan, Devos ends up doing probably what the jailer wanted. So there's also an argument the Archon was completely right. And like, even if the Archon didn't know about the jailer and Frostmourne and stuff like that, there's still an argument the Archon was still right. And you also don't know that she doesn't know. She could know all of this already and have like bigger plans and stuff like that she doesn't have to tell every single Kyrian. You know, which is kind of how leadership works.
I'm not budging. Kyrian right for the wrong reasons, Devos wrong for the right reasons. Like that's as simple as this is.
That's fair.
Like, yeah, like that's like I think the entire all of Bastion is implicated in this. It takes a village. It takes a village to corrupt Devos, I guess is what I'm saying.
I guess. Maybe. I'm not so sure. I kind of feel like, yeah, the jailer's been given a bad deal, and yeah, it must be frustrating for Devos not to be listened to when she's just discovered this huge evil and things like that. But I don't know, man. It's that thing of where if she'd listened to the Archon, maybe none of this would have happened. Because there's also an argument that this could actually be the tipping point for sort of everything that happens in Shadowlands. You know, because it's straight after those events on the timeline that Sylvanas then throws herself from the top of Icecrown and gets her first glimpse into the Maw and meets the jailer for the first time. And, you know, we've been told that that's when she first came into contact with the jailer. So mere moments, really, after the ending of this cinematic, when she, like maybe days or weeks, because she's not in Icecrown when it happens, is she? So she gets to Icecrown. She like sees everything that's gone on, and then she throws herself from the top of it. So
how does that all work out with with being judged by the freaking arbiter? And
yeah, like, it's incredibly weird, and
a lot of questions.
Exactly. And then there's then you have the tantalizing question of, which is a question that we were asking anyway, but to have it kind of solidified like this in the cinematic is really satisfying. Of how did Frostmourne? Now we know it is a weapon of the Maw, and we kind of thought it was anyway. How did that get out of the Maw? How did that get into Arthas's hands? Was it stolen by the Nathrazim, because we know it's kind of supplied by Dreadlords, right? Or was it literally forged by the Nathrazim in the Maw? And if so, why the Nathrazim in the Maw? And why is Sidanathrius definitely a Nathrazim? Like, there's so much kind of awesome, sort of tantalizing speculation sort of around here, which is just fascinating. But I really love the idea of, because so it brings up a really interesting question for me regarding Arthas's redemption. Okay, because I generally am against redemption storylines in WoW, only because they get done so much, and I like the Illidan one. I found particularly annoying. And
you found the Illidan one annoying?
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
Illidan.
I guess
Illidan is like I don't know if you watch anime or not, but Illidan is like the quintessential Vegeta, and it's perfect. Illidan's entire story, I think, it is perfect pulpy nonsense, and I love it.
It's fine. And like, in fairness, it's often the idea of a redemption story that annoys me more than the actual redemption story itself.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair.
I really like Star Wars.
I think it's fair to be wary. I think it's fair. And like, so the idea of an Illidan redemption annoyed me a lot more than the actual redemption did. I thought it was very well done. It had some good cinematics and stuff, and some good story and some good build up, and I believed it. And fine. Okay. And the same with Arthas, you know, my gut feeling is that I'm completely against the idea of an Arthas redemption, just because, of course they're going to redeem Arthas. But I mean, if we're not so much redeeming him as giving him the chance at redemption that he was due but never got. So the idea of, instead of like Arthas saves us all and Arthas is good now, if our mission basically, as part of setting the Shadowlands right again, is to find Arthas, get him out of the Maw, and put him in Revendreth, where he actually belongs, where he gets a fair shot at redemption, or he might not be redeemed, but that's up to him. And I feel like that's a much more satisfying scenario. Like, if he was
because that's the challenge that the Bastion short tees up. The Bastion short seems to very much be looking at and judging Uther's actions as, this was not your decision to make. Like, you were not fit to judge Arthas's soul. Like, that's not how this works. You cheated the system. And
funny that we were talking about Batman before, isn't it?
Pre-show. So podcast listeners, you have no idea what we're talking about, but like, we tend to talk about Batman for some reason before the show a lot. Now it makes a lot of sense because it just got a new trailer, but up until this point, I don't know why we've had like 6 separate conversations on the topic of Batman before we did podcast.
Because there's nothing like starting a day with your bat nipples. But yeah, like, we're talking about Batman.
I prefer the bat butt. I'm a bigger fan of the bat butt.
Like, bypass the system, and yeah, that's what Uther's doing here. And I don't know, yeah, like this idea that whether he deserves, whether he would be redeemed or not, robbing someone of their chance at redemption is wrong. Right. And I can get behind that, definitely. I can definitely get behind that. Because that, to me, is much more interesting and much more satisfying than Arthas is good now and was all along. You know?
No, I mean, I hope that's what, you know, the Shadowlands kind of deals in throughout the entire expansion. It is none of it is that black and white. Like, there seems to be a lot of interesting nuance in completely insane, off the wall, batshit fantasy pulp insanity, you know, that's going on in the Shadowlands. But
because if it was a case of going, okay, Arthas is our only hope, we have to rescue him from the Maw, I'd be like, really? Let's leave him there, take our chances. But if the question is, we need to rescue Arthas and put him in Revendreth, where he gets his shot at redemption, that I'm totally behind. Yeah, and so actually, like, I mean, that goes a long way to kind of changing my mind on my attitude towards the Arthas question. which I really like.
This is gonna end up being like a Grom Hellscream thing, where it's just like it becomes a line in the sand where you're like, well, Arthas was redeemed, so I hate Shadowlands. It's the worst expansion ever.
That is not the reason I hate WoD. It's just the
I'm being reductive for the sake of teasing you.
So yeah, but putting him somewhere where he gets his shot at redemption that everyone else gets, I'm fine with that. That's cool. And I'd be down with that. And that would be a mission worth going on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think so too, or something that you kind of stumble upon, and it's just like I like the idea because like your character, I think regardless of like how you RP your character probably know who Arthas is. Just be like, wait, no, this guy's like bastard of the universe. Yeah. Like we can't save him, and somebody probably from Bastion is like, well, no, the chance, the proper. The judgment we all deserve was robbed of the soul. We have to. It's the right thing to do. We have to, course correct the actions of Uther and Devos. And it'd be great. That'd be so cool. It'd just be like, no, but it's Arthas. He's a piece of garbage. Like, nope, sorry. Like he was robbed of his chance for judgment. We got it. We have to set it straight. And just like that.
And maybe he won't take it. Maybe he will end up in the Maw, and that's got to be an option as well. Is that thing or maybe he'll end up becoming the jailer. Who knows? But
it seems like there might be someone else in there with pointy ears that might also be interested in the power of the jailer.
Well, quite exactly. Oh my god, I'd love to see Sylvanas and Arthas fighting over the jailer crown. That'd be pretty cool.
If I get out of Shadowlands and I don't see an Arthas Sylvanas face off, I'm gonna. It will be the worst expansion ever. That's my
wow. Oh no, that's
my chained up Grom. That's my chained up Grom.
You're saying there. That's some expectations right there, my friend.
That is why I'm so concerned when they're like, yeah, we're not gonna see a lot of Arthas. I'm just like, we better see this. Like if you have Arthas's soul to play with. If there is not some sort of interaction with Sylvanas, like what are you doing? How could you not want to play with those pieces?
Here's the thing. If you think after seeing that cinematic that we're not going to see a lot of Arthas in Shadowlands, then I don't know what to say to you, because that cinematic might as well be, that's the reveal. For me, that cinematic is literally saying, we're going to see so much of Arthas in Shadowlands. Like, you have no idea.
I hope you're... Well, I don't know, because the comments seemed like expectation management to me. And I don't want Arthas plastered all over. I don't want this to become like a pseudo, Lich King 2. I don't want Arthas all over this thing like, my favorite hot sauce, okay?
And that's why listeners might be confused to hear me say I'd be up for seeing lots of Arthas in Shadowlands now, after having said numerous times that I'd hate it. Because they didn't bill it as that, and because they didn't put Arthas all over everything. And the way they're introducing Arthas into this story is very much through the storytelling, like through this cinematic and through kind of, we're talking about how Arthas fits into the way the Shadowlands even works and stuff. And that's how it's done. That's how you're supposed to do it. So they are winning me over to the idea just by doing it right, which is really satisfying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm always like, there's sometimes a sequel to something you love comes out and you're just like, do we need it? And to me, it always comes down to, well, do they have an interesting story to tell? Do they have an interesting angle or a way to reframe these characters in interesting ways? And that's exactly what this did for me. Like, I'm an Arthas fanboy, one of the biggest ones out there. I would love to see more Arthas, but at the same time, I'm like, I really liked where it ended. I thought it was a perfect ending. I loved the end of Wrath of the Lich King. I'm scared of like just digging that character back up. Like what else is there to do? And this cinematic, like, it immediately reframes the character of Arthas, because it's like, all right, you all know the story of Arthas as like the oppressor, as the big bad, as a force of evil that must be dealt with. That's over. What happened afterwards? Now Arthas has been reframed as the victim of Devos and Uther. Essentially, yeah. Like he's been made small by the end of this by the end of this short, because he doesn't have a lot of agency. Arthas shows up, stabs Uther in this, and then his soul is ripped away and just like chucked like trash into a bin. And that's the end of it. This focuses this puts Uther and Devos and Bastion on a pedestal, significantly above Arthas. And so that's interesting. It's like, well, what does this mean? You know, Arthas has always been so elevated. Now we've really cut him down, like truly in this.
And what about Uther? Because of course you have lots of ideas about Uther from Warcraft 3 and sort of going into World of Warcraft as well. And does the cinematic change your kind of opinion about him at all?
It obviously it does a very Last Jedi-esque thing, I think. Like how that kind of treats Luke. Like I came away from this like, ooh, this is gonna ruffle some Uther fans. I think it's gonna ruffle some Uther fans. And oh, sorry, there is now a chainsaw outside my window. Hopefully, it's not being picked up too badly. But to me, it makes a lot of sense. There's still questions as like how exactly what did the soul split mean? What does that actually mean in a more literal way? Maybe we'll get answers to that. Maybe we don't. Regardless of getting into the minutia of what the hell does the soul split mean, it makes sense to me that Uther would be like, oh my God, this was the greatest betrayal in the history of betrayals. I am stewing on this. And I think it's an interesting way to go. It'd be boring if we just show him and Uther's just like, champion, I am a paragon of light. I am completely at peace with how I died. And it totally makes sense that his soul would be conflicted. And like I said, I really like this idea of like, he was in his own purgatory. He was just kneeling in a field being an emo bastard for God knows how long. Because he didn't know how to move past what happened to him and the way that it challenged him in a way that I think pays really cool respect to a ridiculous RTS storyline in Warcraft 3. Like, I remember that's what made me a Blizzard fan. So a lot of fanboy oozing here, but I remember picking it up. I was playing through. I'm like, yeah, okay. Blonde Prince is the hero of this fantasy story. I've never seen. Oh shit, he just killed his dad. Like, it was cool at the time. For me, this is like I never played Final Fantasy VII. I have no reverence for it whatsoever. This was that for me. The way a lot of people talk about a certain part in Final Fantasy VII, Arthas' fall in Warcraft 3 was me going, I didn't know you could tell a story like this in a video game. This is sweet. This is awesome. And so having that still cast a shadow over Uther's soul in the afterlife, again, it's that, like I said, if you're not that this is like as clearly a sequel as sequels are in things like books, shows, and movies, it still is. It's like, well, if you're digging this back up, do you have an interesting story to tell? And I think this is a really interesting story.
Yeah. And partly because, Arthas might still lack that kind of agency that you're talking about throughout the entire expansion, in fairness. If our mission is to get him out of the Maw, and then there's the thing of he might not want to leave the Maw, and then it's that kind of thing of finding a way to convince him to be in Revendreth and take his shot at redemption. And but he's probably doing all right in the Maw, really. He's probably got quite a good deal as far as people in the Maw go. He's probably kind of got good weapons and got a place high up in the hierarchy and stuff. And I find it really interesting. And with the Uther thing, there is, of course, the point that the implication that the Uther we see in the Shadowlands in Bastion is only kind of half of Uther, right? So it's kind of hard to judge him as a character too much because there's that idea that his soul, his presence in Bastion is missing something quite significant that means he's not really even Uther to be, he's not a complete Uther right there. And I think that's really interesting. But it does also leave the door open for what happens to Uther throughout Shadowlands, because we know what happens to Devos. But what the idea that Uther is still kind of can be put back on his path and can be kind of retrieved, I guess, would be the best word, and kind of woken up properly. And because that's the thing, that's another thing I really like about the cinematic is how well it sets up the events in the Bastion zone. Because I've played the Bastion zone, I've leveled through it a few times now, and I've seen that story a number of times. And I went through it, and so again, spoilers for Bastion zone. I went through it, and it's all love and wheat fields and aspiring and things like that. And some people are having trouble with their ascending and what have you, and purging their bad memories and stuff, and doing all the things that you're supposed to do. And then suddenly you bump into Uther, who is talking to someone who's having doubts, and Uther's like wearing all kind of very dark, purpley emo Kyrian armor, and you're like, well, what's going on? And then suddenly there's like this rebellion where all the Forsworn come along and start causing nonsense, and you have to fight against them, and that's kind of becomes the main story of the zone. And you're like, well, okay, fine. But seeing how that began and seeing Uther's journey and Devos' journey kind of gives away the kind of the plot twist in the zone that Devos is a baddie, to be perfectly honest. But, you know, failing, you know, no one's going to not know that it's Devos in charge. Right,
that's always kind of been a conceit of World of Warcraft. You usually, if you're paying a little bit of attention to even just official channels, even like non-beta or alpha channels in the lead up to an expansion, you probably have a pretty good idea of what the setup for each zone is, what the setup for the expansion is. There's not a lot of surprises in where the pieces stand when we get to the game board that is a new expansion of World of Warcraft, right? The surprises are in where it goes from there. That's what the novels leading up to it are. That's what that's exactly what Afterlives sets up to do, is like, this is the state of Bastion, basically, when you get there. You know, this has happened before you got there. Chances are you're going to have to deal with this in some way. They're not showing us this so that they can bury Uther and Devos for the entire leveling experience in Bastion.
Well, no, exactly. And you know, that context of having seen the cinematic and going back into Bastion, like, adds so much to the zone. You know, it might kind of spoil the twist if you hadn't worked it out, but it adds far more than it takes away, and it gives it that context. And there's even, like, you know, if I haven't been following the beta, you know, and I haven't been playing the beta, and I've just seen that cinematic, and then I go into Bastion on day one, I play through half that zone, and I'm thinking, so where's Uther and Devos then? Like, that was set up as being quite important, but where are they? And then suddenly it all kicks off, and you're like, what? They've become this? Wow. Because, like, you know, they have progressed like a long way down that road by the time where they finish at the end of the cinematic and where they start by the time we get there. They've progressed a lot down that path, and that's really interesting. So to have that kind of that time skip between the cinematic and the start of the expansion is super interesting from like a player point of view. You know, assuming you went in there blind and you didn't know anything, you'd seen the cinematic, and then you see where the events of that cinematic had led, like, decades down the line. It's really interesting from a narrative point of view, I think.
I agree. I agree. Like, it's why I like this so much. Is like, I don't have a lot of questions from like a thematic standpoint. I like the themes that they're dealing with here. All my questions just get into really nerdy, like, lore bits. It's like, well, does Frostborn split every soul, or is it something that's specific to Uther? I'm leaning towards it's something that's specific to Uther, but it's still a question that, you know, we'll find out. And, you know, what does that mean? And, you know, it's funny because at the beginning of this, it's why I think it's an effective short. At the very beginning of this, there's a straight up close up on Frostborn and the runes of Frostborn, and then we immediately get whisked away into Bastion and dealing with Devos and the Kyrian and Uther's soul. And when Uther reveals his wound, I'm like, oh shit, that's right. He was stabbed by Frostborn. I had forgotten that short of a time about the whole. Oh yeah, he was kind of stabbed by a very important weapon that has direct ties to the Shadowlands. And what does that mean? And so now I haven't thought about Frostborn for so long, and that's me, like, a number one Frostborn fan. Like, so I have all these questions again, like, how does that tie in? Like you mentioned, like, wait, what the hell does this have to do with Dreadlords? You know, and what does it mean? What really happens to souls that go into Frostborn in regards to the Shadowlands? Is it a block? Is it a shortcut to the jailer? Because it seems like the jailer is involved in this in some way. Was Frostborn like a proto Sylvanas scheme? We know that at some point when Sylvanas got involved, souls started just going to the maw. Was Frostborn like a beta version of that scheme?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And then, like, there's the question of if like Frostborn is a shortcut to the jailer. You know, the argument that, okay, so half of his soul went to Bastion, half of it went into Frostborn. Does that mean half of it was like communicating with the jailer all that time? And was that having an influence on the part of his soul that was in Bastion and kind of made him do this thing that benefited the jailer? Like, is it literally whispers of the jailer kind of thing that made this happen? Because I find it quite interesting that I like the way it's kind of inverted in that, you know, you kind of expect lots of people who would write this story would write Devos as being annoyed with the system already when Uther got there, and like using Uther and his desire for revenge to kind of kick off her plans to create the Forsworn and change things, right? And it's really interesting that it kind of is the opposite of that. It's Uther turning up that kind of corrupts Devos, not the other way around. And that's really interesting. And his mere presence and what he's been through in Bastion is enough to kind of change the zone and change this steadfast kind of like high up Kyrian and make them decide to abandon the path and set these potentially disastrous events in motion. And you got to think that maybe, you know, you've had Uther be around while Arthas gets corrupted and throws away his life and becomes evil, and you've had him then be there while Devos does the same thing. Is Uther just a shit teacher? Is Uther just like really awful? Is Uther just like so annoying that everyone he spends lots of time with and is close to just like corrupts and goes bad? Because that's just easier than being friends with Uther? I don't know.
It's a little unfair to a soul that's clearly not whole.
I'm not saying correlation, but it's definitely. I'm not saying it's causation. Sorry, but it's definitely correlation.
I think that's a little mean to a soul that is not whole and was also experienced one of the greatest betrayal in all of Warcraft lore.
Just saying he was there both times. You know, there are two characters in this story now who've kind of done really bad things that have helped the jailer, and the only kind of link is Uther. That's all I'm saying. The only thing Devos and Arthas have got in common is Uther.
I'm just going to keep coming back around to the Archon and the Kyrian should have been like, oh yeah, we should probably do something about that guy with the Maw sword. We should probably listen to you. But they didn't. So
maybe
listen. Frankenstein just wanted to make flowers float down a river. You show up with your pitchforks and torches.
Arthas, when he died, wouldn't have got snatched by Devos and would have gone to Revendreth as planned, and none of this would have happened. Maybe the Archon was completely right. And you might not like that, but maybe the Archon was right. And maybe if no matter how correct Devos was about the blade and stuff, and she undoubtedly was, but maybe if she'd just done what the Archon, the god, the Eternal One, who presumably knows a lot more about stuff than her, maybe if she'd just done what she was told, none of this would have happened. Just saying.
You sound very pro-dictator right now.
I don't think, I'm just saying. I'm not saying, her motivations aren't completely understandable, but just saying.
Taliesin says there's real danger in thinking for yourself. That's what Taliesin wants you to take away from this podcast, everybody.
Look, if Devos' actions resulted in the jailer taking over the whole of Shadowlands and taking away anything like free will, I'm just saying, like, see how you like it under the jailer. See how much you like that. You'll be like, oh, actually, no, this really sucks. Maybe I should have just done what the Archon said. The person who I called my leader for millions of years and who I said I trusted for millions of years. Maybe
you're really erecting some hammers and sickles in Bastion right now, aren't you?
What?
You're really erecting some hammers and sickles in Bastion right now, aren't you? Are you saying it's our Bastion? Is that what you're trying to say, Taliesin?
No, excuse me, mate. Under communism, they would all own the means of production, so the Archon wouldn't have the power to make decisions like that. It would be a group decision, and the machinery of death would be much less likely to break because it would be owned by so many more people and spread across the proletariat. So, and also they'd have more investment in the machinery of death because they would have ownership of it, and it wouldn't just belong to a select few. So make it much. So for one, at the moment, you got one of the five covenant leaders just decides to break the machinery of death. So they can, because they're one of 6 people in charge of it, like, who we know of. All I'm saying is, under communism, like everyone in the Shadowlands would have some ownership of the machinery of death. They'd all own that means of production, and it would have probably made the jailers' plan much, much harder to achieve.
Well, damn.
Since you went there, since you brought up hammers and sickles,
I was thinking more, the cat meme that begins with "our." I was thinking that surface level, joke of you sure seem to like want to just get in line behind a leader that just tells you what to do. That's all I
want. A bit more like corporate capitalism to me. Like you've got kind of like you've got an elite who are fine with power and who are, because they're comfortable in their positions of power, completely disregarding the very obvious dangers that the world is facing. Like if you went to Jeff Bezos and you were like, yo, Bezos, I think we should do something about the environment because it's all going to get dicked and we're all going to die. And Bezos is like, nah, this is the true path. We're fine. Stick to the true path. Like, that's far more comparable, right? And you don't have the power to do anything about that, because how can you possibly like, what matters if you disagree with Bezos? Who cares? Like, what power do you have? Nothing. So you agree that Devos was right in disregarding the Archon's thoughts? I'm just saying, like, maybe if they listened to Devos, maybe if they listened to the Archon, it wouldn't have happened. But we don't know that. I'm just floating possibilities there.
Maybe treat Devos with a little more respect and explain more thoroughly as to why you are disregarding this threat instead of just. No, it is no concern. This has been the way forever, and it will continue to be the way. Like that.
That's where hereditary power gets you, my friend. Like you eventually get leaders who feel no need to explain themselves to their underlings, and that's the problem, isn't it? So that's why I fight for change in the alliance. I think it's ridiculous that the alliance is run by a hereditary monarchy, because it means you get people like Tyrande who've been around, or Velen who've been around for tens of thousands of years, doing what they're told by some 19-year-old just because he ascended the throne of Stormwind. Bullshit, isn't it?
How much is Tyrande really listening? Tyrande is definitely some Devos energy in this exchange. It feels like just like that's nice, boy king. I'm gonna turn my eyes black and go do my own shit right now, please. Thank you. Cue the Evanescence. But yeah. So, went off the rails there a bit. I know we were trying to like wrap this up before the panel starts. For the people listening home wondering when we're recording this, is a panel starting very shortly. But I think we've actually wrapped up an episode in record time. Like I think we're at a natural stopping point.
It was laser focused, which was awesome. Now, one thing I'd like to ask before we do actually wrap up, because there's something on my mind. The voice of Uther is the same voice actor he has always had. I understand. Is that correct? How much do you know about the voice actor Uther?
Basically nothing.
I've been told that it's the same voice actor he's always had since Warcraft 3, all the way through Hearthstone, all the way through Legion as well, and now presumably it's like they dusted off their little black book and they're like, get that Uther guy back. He's gonna. And they're like, are you busy in 2020? Because we need a lot of voice lines for Uther. And it is definitely the same actor. That's awesome. And I wonder how that compares. I wonder if there are any other actors that have been there all the way through. Like, has O'Brien always been the voice of Illidan? Like McConaughey is the voice of Uther. That's interesting. Well, that's a very familiar name, and not just because he's Uther. What else has he done? Let me Google him very quickly.
Let's see. Yeah, he's okay. So because Taryn Gregory did post the credits yesterday, and yeah, Michael McConaughey is in there, and yeah, he's credited all the way back to Warcraft 3.
Wow.
Looking at his credits here. So yeah, been the same guy since since Warcraft 3. That is crazy.
That's incredibly impressive. He's many voices in Avatar.
Who is he in Avatar?
Various.
Just various. That's it.
Yeah.
No main characters.
But I'm going to decide that he's Cabbage Man from the Earth Kingdom.
Wait, have you started watching it? I didn't think you had seen it.
I have seen much of it, but a long time ago. So we're rewatching it with Evie, who hasn't seen it before, and we just got to that one.
Nice.
He was in the real Ghostbusters. Steve Jennings, I don't know who that is.
Neither do I.
He's been in all sorts. He's played no less than 4 baddies in Power Rangers. He was in the Fist of the North Star movie.
A ton of Naruto, a lot of anime. It looks like.
Wait, he's Master Tatsu in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies.
In the movies?
Yeah, as in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze. Facts. Just saying.
I have to remind myself who Tatsu even is. Wait, but did they dubbed his voice?
Sorry?
Because Tatsu...
That's how voice actors work, Garrett. They go in and they...
Yeah, but those were live action movies, so I was like, wait, what are you talking about? I thought maybe... Okay, all right. I didn't know that. Didn't know that Tatsu not a character that has a lot of speaking lines.
Maybe not. And he's been loads of voices in... He's the voice of Deathwing as well.
Wow. All right.
Pretty awesome. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
Michael McConaughey.
He's an absolute legend. Are there any other actors that have been like the same character for as long as him?
Arthas.
I doubt it. Maybe,
I don't. Arthas's voice actor hasn't changed. I don't know Arthas's voice actor offhand, but I'm fairly certain that Arthas's voice actor has been the same since Warcraft 3. It looks like, yeah. Oh, it says voiced most times by Justin Gross.
Okay. Obviously, you got Thrall. He's been the same.
Oh, no. Yeah, there's actually 3 voices credited for Arthas, and one of them is Michael McConaughey.
Wow, hang on. We're going down the rabbit hole now, boys. Uther is Arthas. The clues were always there. The clues were there from the start. Okay. We just didn't want to take them.
Okay, no. So never mind. Justin Gross was Warcraft 3 Arthas. Patrick Seitz was Wrath of the Lich King Arthas. It looks like, and I can't find when
Oh.
Yeah, when Michael McConaughey was... Well, this is great. We're just Googling now. This is wonderful podcast content.
But no, it's someone mentioned in chat, but it's not Laura Bailey doing Jaina in Warcraft 3. It's a different actor. So no, Laura Bailey only came in WoW.
Tron and Malfurion never changed voice actors, says
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah. Well, Malfurion's character never really changed either. It got all that interesting in my opinion. So that checks out. That checks out. Yeah, I mean, I'm used to the voice actors changing, which is why I have no memory whatsoever as to who voices who. Like, Liam O'Brien is the only one I have committed to memory.
Yeah, there's that. That's so awesome, though. That's so interesting. Anyway, right. We should wrap that up now. That was just something that was on my mind. Sorry, because I think it's so cool that this guy has just been Uther for 8. And I'll always remember his name now.
And usually Uther's been pretty kind of, cheesy, like champion for the light, justice, that's kind of, it's very kind of like Mario. Like every line is kind of delivered with the same affect. And that was part of the reason I liked this so much. It was cool to see Uther with like a range of emotions. If
you could get Mario to voice one World of Warcraft character, who would it be?
Mechatork.
I'd have Sourfang. Let's go. Like, what's that, Sourfang? You want to rebel against the Lich Queen? Yippee! It'd be awesome.
It's me, Mario. I invoke Makara. Jesus.
That'd be so great.
That's so ridiculous.
What's that? A Makara? Let's go. That'd be amazing. Or I'd have him voice every single old god. I'd have him voice Cthulhu and Yogg-Saron, but I'd have Luigi voice N'Zoth.
What's a like? What's a Yogg quote? Like giving to your just Mario being like, "Thank you for giving it to your fear." just
Wee.
Let's go. Lose our minds. just what the okay. This is okay. I hope you enjoyed this, everybody. This is a great episode of WoW Killer. It's wonderful. So
You will die. Yippee!
do we gonna get? Do you think we're getting like back to back 4 weeks of Afterlives?
We know we are there.
Is it been confirmed? I didn't see that. Yeah. Okay, so are we just gonna do 4 weeks of Afterlives episodes?
Yes.
All right, cool. Then that means
I'm playing videos on my channel as well, so get over it.
Wonderful. We're gonna. We're in pre Shadowlands hype. Like we don't. This is our podcast hasn't existed long enough to have pre expansion hype. So this is the track we are now on. Yeah. Which means start writing your email. Like feel free to write your emails in reaction to all of these, and we'll do a mailbag at the end of this where we kind of get y'all's thoughts on all of the Afterlives. So wowkillercast@gmail.com is where you can send those emails. Do that. And other than that, we're here at the end now. So follow the show on Twitter @wowkillercast and Taliesin. If folks are somehow unaware of where to find your other WoW content, where can they do so?
Taliesin and Evitel do games on YouTube, and Taliesin and Evitel on Twitch, and Taliesin Evitel on Twitter. That's where you'll find us.
Well, you'll find this podcast and every other damn one I produce at amove.tv. So go check that out. We got Here's a Storm podcast over there, a Hearthstone podcast over there, and now a World of Warcraft one. But you know that because you're listening. You know a lot because you're listening to the end of the podcast, which almost no one does. So this is where we hide our secrets at the end of a podcast.
Okie dokie.
Follow me at Garrett on Twitter. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, everybody. This is terrible. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I had a good time with it. We will be back in roughly a week's time, hopefully, to talk about the next Afterlife short. But until then, good luck, have fun, and hold on to your soul, everybody. Well, that was an absolute treat. Thank you for making time for this morning.
No, I'm sorry it was so all over the place. Thank you for getting up so early for it. But yeah, we want to stream. We want to have a little look at the panel.
Yeah. Gamescom. Oh, of course. No, I just happened to have. I had an alarm set for 7:30 my time, and I just happened to have woken up like 30 minutes earlier, which I almost never do. But I was like, well, I'm awake now. I think I'll get up. And then I saw your DM, and I was like, I can be ready in 30 minutes. We can do this.
Nice. You legend. Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm going to go and start my stream.
Sweet.
But I will see you next week.
Yeah. Well, are they all, do we know if they're all dropping on Thursdays?
I can't remember now. It might be a bit different next week, but I'll have to check.
Okay.
I'll have to check. But there is a schedule somewhere. Oh, yeah, they are all Thursdays. Yeah.
Okay. So are you cool with just doing Friday recordings for the next 3
why not?
weeks?
I can do that.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes, but I might get back to you on that. I might have to have a look. Going on with weekly reset and stuff.
If we gotta do like a Saturday push, that's cool. Or we could
we're aiming to get weekly reset back up and running next weekend, so that might be a problem. But give me a couple of days just to assess everything, and yeah,
we'll just DM on Twitter like usual and figure it out. So chat room.
Lovely.
Thanks for chilling. Go over to twitch.tv/Taliesin and Evitel.